too, of Māori from the rural areas to the cities and towns of New Zealand.
Fascinating. And hence I think the urban redevelopment of Christchurch post the earthquakes falls quite well into that purview, possibly.
Well, absolutely. And a big part of that urbanisation was around trade training schemes. So it fits in quite nicely in terms of the housing portfolio too, that a big area that I looked at actually was housing policy in that area. So that's been very useful.
Did you know when you were doing your doctorate that you would end up in government having to look after these departments?
No, and actually my PhD supervisor told me while I was studying that all PhDs become autobiographical. Of course, I didn't believe it, but now I'm starting to.
So in case you wanted to change your stream, you might have to do another PhD if you want to do something else for the country.
That's right. It covers off quite a broad range of areas. I think there's some more chapters of my life that can be covered from it yet.
Okay, broadly speaking, what would they be? Just as an interesting thing for our listeners to find out a bit more about you.
Oh, so in terms of my PhD, in terms of what they'd be, so before I entered Parliament, what I was doing was working for one of our Crown Research Institutes as a business development manager doing technology commercialisation. So that's what I was doing after I left being at a university. I went and worked for a CRI. And so that was really good background for coming into the science and innovation role, that my job was to work between businesses and the scientists, working out the ways in which science and technology could be used in their businesses. So it gave me a really good insight into how companies and businesses think about research in their everyday operations.
Right. And now you couldn't be working in a more real world situation to take care of that outcome of that PhD. Amazing. So just moving on to some of your portfolios, the government had begun with allocating a reasonably small, but I suppose effective allocation of about $25 million to create products and services that will aid in the fight against COVID-19. We hear about the possibility of a local-made ventilator, workplace tracking, and a possible vaccine. So a couple of questions there. What's the progress on those products, and what kind of products are coming out of that fund? And do you think New Zealand could be first out of the blocks with a vaccine for the world?
So there's a couple of pools of money. You're quite right. We moved while we were still in level 4 actually to set up something called the COVID Innovation Fund. And this was there are a lot of New Zealand businesses out there that were doing some things that could be of use not only to New Zealand but the world in terms of products they could pretty quickly innovate around. So ventilators. Certainly. In particularly low-cost ventilators. Yes. So a lot of those are obviously coming through. I went and visited a company this week that's based here in Christchurch, where I live, who are doing construction site tracking, so different from the kind of tracking that we saw if you were entering a shop or a cafe, but working out which parts of a site different people are on. So if there were to be an outbreak, that you wouldn't necessarily have to close down an entire site. So some really, really good products that not only will be of use to us here in New Zealand, but actually we're used to seeing a lot of our innovative Kiwi firms go to the world with these products. So I think there's really good commercial opportunities for some of our companies there too. They needed to get them to market. And a lot of testing techniques as well, particularly around how we might do that quickly. So one of the things that received some money was ESR, one of our CRIs. We gave some money so they could get the testing that they do around wastewater and sewage up to speed. You'll be able to tell either whether that be at a city level or a hotel level or very small clusters whether or not there's anyone in that population with COVID by testing the wastewater and the sewage, because it turns up in all kinds of places, that virus, and obviously there'll be markers and that biological waste to be able to tell. So there's some really exciting things that I think will help us if we do see a further outbreak in New Zealand, being able to be a lot more sophisticated with our testing. And this is something that people around the world are looking for answers to. So I'm pretty excited about some of the futures for New Zealand companies coming out of that.
That's very interesting. I think the construction site one is particularly intriguing because really, if you think about it, not having to shut the whole site down if only a part of it was affected, and a site could be so huge. I mean, you look at big projects, the building could be over several blocks.
That's
So that
yeah.
way you would save the project and save on the economic loss from doing a full shutdown. So that could be very interesting.
Yeah. And also where you need to get in and do a deep cleanse.
Hmm.
So I think that um, hopefully we don't have to use it in New Zealand. That's all of our hope. But there's
Yes.
certainly plenty of countries around the world that haven't been able to open up their economies anywhere near as much as we have in New Zealand. I think
So God
sometimes
forbid if there was a second wave, we are going to be better prepared.
that's right.
That's great to know. And on the question of that vaccine, do you think we have the resources to be the first out of the blocks and kind of beat the world at it?
Look, I always have faith in New Zealanders to do that. But so, in addition to the 25 million for that innovation, we have set up another
Yeah.
$37 million fund, which is just about the vaccine. And this
Hmm.
is quite multi-dimensional. So there's 12 million, there's 10 million in there for our researchers.
Hmm.
And who's to say that an answer won't become up within a New Zealand lab? There's no reason why it shouldn't. We have a lot of expertise in
Hmm.
this area. But it's also making sure that our scientists can be part of global efforts. That
Right.
there's a lot of groups that are forming around the world with experts from a lot of different countries. It means that our scientists can take part in that. But
Hmm.
another big part of that vaccine strategy is that we know, in terms of getting the vaccine to New Zealand, the supply chain, and making
Hmm.
sure that we've got enough here to vaccinate people if and when one is discovered, that
Right.
actually what we want to gear up is to be able to manufacture the vaccine in here and not
Certainly.
wait for it for it to be exported. We want to make sure that if there's business models that allow for licensing and local
Yeah.
manufacture, that we're well
Yes.
set up. And we know our biotech is really strong in New Zealand, but we have
Well,
to
one of the biggest challenges for you is going to be to actually prevent it from getting exported because the need outside of New Zealand is far greater.
absolutely.
So to keep it here would be the biggest challenge, I'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, what we want to do is make sure that New Zealand is well set up in terms of supply chains. We saw some
Hmm.
problems with COVID.
Hmm.
That countries that produce PPE
Yes.
and were producing some of the other the reagents for the testing, that those
Yes.
countries got served first. So we
Yeah,
want
it
to
was
make
going all over the place. It was getting very,
sure.
very, I don't know what to call it. It was getting stupid almost.
And that
And
was
it was
global.
very concerning.
Yeah, that was happening all over the world. So we want to make sure we're really well prepared for when there is a vaccine, and also that we can make sure it gets into the Pacific,
Yes.
so that we are looking after our neighbours there as well.
So is there a lot of cooperation between the other big countries, countries in Europe,
Yeah.
and maybe is there cooperation with China, for instance, because they've been at the epicenter of the start, and they may have something very effective going, but we don't seem to know anything about it.
So we very much so the we're pulling together the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. The Research, Science and Innovation team is
Hmm.
leading this work, but it also brings in Foreign Affairs and Health. And
Right.
Foreign Affairs, because we're making sure that we're using our relationships at a
Hmm.
diplomatic level to
Hmm.
make sure that we're talking to governments right around the world about what they're doing. We're looking at joining global alliances. There's one that's
Yes.
coming out of Europe, and of course, what's happening in Australia, where we have a
Right.
lot of science collaboration. But look, New Zealand scientists collaborate right around the world. They have good relationships into China. We have a lot of
Yeah.
collaborations with into India with
Right.
various groups as well. So I think that it's
Yes.
making sure we're making sure our scientists are resourced to be able to do what they do best.
Certainly, and I think they've actually developed a very inexpensive ventilator in India as well, which might be worth
Yeah.
looking at.
Mm.
I'd be happy to share that with you at a later point, and
Oh,
after the
wonderful.
interview's over. Uh, we want to let New Zealand do its own thing, but the world can collaborate and
Oh,
make it
absolutely.
easier for everybody. Okay, so that's very interesting. So nothing about China. China hasn't come forward because they've been in this thick soup of bad PR for a long time now. With the Americans not helping them much either, but there's nothing coming out of there in terms of saying, look, we got a handle on this better than the rest of the world, and we can actually innovate faster because of the size we have and actually help the rest of the world, including New Zealand.
Look, we have really strong science relationships with China that actually the
Hmm.
Prime Minister last year, I think it
Hmm.
was, signed a cooperation agreement with the
Right,
Chinese Academy of Sciences,
right.
so that we do have strong relationships. And certainly,
Yes.
If there's work going on, we want to be making sure that the world gets what it needs the fastest. So we'll be working all of our relationships right around the world.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed from a public perspective and from a personal perspective, definitely. Anywhere it can come from, I think it'll be helpful to all of us.
That's right.
So moving on from the COVID stuff, your pet subject, probably not, housing. So, I was actually trying to do a bit of reading on it before, doing the meeting with you. And I'll be very honest with you. It is difficult to get a handle on it. It's changed so often. There are so many ins and outs. The reset, the fact that at one point the government was $26 million out of pocket, buying and selling the Kiwi built houses. Something like 406 was sold out of the 728 that were under construction. And then the developers themselves also were having a little bit of they had a mixed reaction to the reset. What do you feel? You're in the thick of it. What do you feel is the biggest challenge you have as a minister, and also what is the biggest challenge for the developers?
So I think the biggest challenge is the fact that we haven't seen the New Zealand government helping New Zealanders into home ownership in many decades now. That this
you
is
mean
actually,
the last three governments with the National Party in there?
yeah, and actually it's something we haven't done for a while. That it
Right.
used to be that we have
Maybe even longer than that.
Yeah, that we have really high levels of home ownership in New Zealand, largely because the New Zealand government and the state was active in the 1950s and 60s and the 70s to an extent, helping people into home ownership. It's something that we stopped doing. So actually, it's kind of like muscle memory. I think it's about reinventing that and starting from square one. But just because it's hard doesn't mean that a government shouldn't do it. It is still the right thing to do, but I think it's rebuilding that capacity. And look, I think there's huge opportunities. I think there are some misconceptions around it. One actually you raised in kind of saying things you'd been looking at. We haven't lost any money in terms of Kiwi Build. That we haven't had to take what we call a haircut on any of the houses.
Well, you're still buying and selling, so it could even out. That's fine.
Absolutely. The money is there to be recycled. So it's actually, when we talk about the underwrite, what it's saying to developers, which they in turn can go and say to their banks, which is going to become even more important post-COVID if we're not going to see what happened after the global financial crisis, is I'm a safe bet to lend to, because even if these houses don't all sell, the government sits behind us with an underwrite. Banks will continue to lend, and we will continue to see housing developments. Now,
so what's the current underwriting percentage that the government has put on the table for the developers? It used to be as high as 90%. Now it's lower.
Yeah, and that differs from contract to contract. It's what's appropriate for a particular development. One of the things we did in the reset is make sure that we had the right tension in there.
Yes.
Developers want to sell before they get to the underwrite. Actually, the government and therefore New Zealanders get a pretty good deal if the underwrite has to be triggered. So it's in the developer.
The lower the underwrite, does it not make it harder for the developer to secure the funding, and therefore they're not able to actually get the projects done?
No, the underwrite is kind of the certainty that the banks are looking on really favourably, because it's a bit of a cast iron guarantee. You have the government sitting in there behind it. And you know, if the government backs away, like we saw happen after the global financial crisis, that we just won't be lending on affordable housing developments. There'll be a retreat back into the safe part of the market, which is not the affordable end of the market. It's building big houses, single-storey houses on a section, not high-density affordable houses, which will allow people into home ownership. And look, we're not going to do that. We've got this mechanism of Kiwi Build, so we've built 395 already. Now that's nowhere near what we talked about in terms of 100,000. But let's just put that into perspective. The previous government, over 9 years, built 100 houses. So
well, they probably sold off more of the state housing than any other previous government had. So I don't think that's a good start either. But just on average, at 100, sorry?
I am to go back to that. The State House was separate We've built way more state houses. We've overbuilt state houses. I had to go back in this year's budget and get
Yes.
funding for that. We'd built more. So we are building more
Okay.
state houses than any government has in a generation. When I talk about the 395, they are just KiwiBuild.
Just
And
the
when I-
KiwiBuild ones.
And when I talk about
So
the
that's about 400 houses you're saying in maybe a couple of years, roughly, give or take.
and we
So
and
100
we
a
have-
year, that's about 12 a month or less.
Yeah. But what we saw over the previous 9 years, we saw 100
Yes.
houses over 9 years.
In the whole time. So
In the
no,
whole
I have a different question. Being from India originally, this is a country where right now the real estate market is shocking. So we won't use that as the best example. The values have dropped, but they're able to roll out, 500,000 houses per developer sometimes in the span of 2 years. And is there not something that we could be doing in terms of being able to give a lot more employment to locals here by partnering with companies overseas? Doesn't have to be India. It can be any other country that's got the wherewithal and the knowledge. They're able to turn around even smaller builders. I personally know one. They did something like 890 flats in the span of 1.5 years.
Is that with
Multi-story buildings.
Is that off-site manufacturing?
Yes.
Doing a bit of factory, yes, and we are doing that. That wasn't
Yes.
done at scale. So one of the things
Yes.
that we have been doing over the last 2 years is actually working around getting off-site manufacturing up and running. We are now
Yes.
building state houses and KiwiBuild houses using
Yes.
this technology, but we've had to develop that. It was kind of like about building that capacity. So look,
Certainly.
we have 773 KiwiBuild houses currently under construction. That this has taken some time to get going, but the fact is we are using all those levers of making
So
sure
we
we're
give you
not-
all of that. We give you all of that. That's fine. That's a big learning curve. Nobody can really expect a minister to be any good as any developer anyway. It's a tough job.
We work with developers on this.
Yes.
So we're not trying to reinvent wheels.
So
That we
what's
are-
the challenge then? I come back to my original question. What is the big challenge? Is it the RMA? Is it the underwriting percentage? Is it the fact that there's not enough labor? Is it because the really big builders probably don't want to build as many as necessary because it'll drop the bottom out of the housing market? They can't make as much money. The banks don't lend as much then. I mean, where is the hiccup?
So I think that one of the key ones is the first one you mentioned in terms of access to land. And
Yes.
that's why David Parker is progressing all the work around the RMA.
Right.
That we saw the previous government tried to do it, couldn't get it across the line. So it is work that we've picked and are working on because that is critical, that
Yes.
does take time. Access to labour certainly is also an issue. The underwrite is actually an accelerator. That's not an
Okay.
impediment. This is actually
Yes.
helping developers get these. I was with a developer on Tuesday in Auckland who's just finishing some houses at Northcote that are coming on stream, and people will be living in them by sort of August, September.
Yes.
And it's the underwrite that's allowed them to do that and to get those houses finished and to move on to the next development. So the underwrite is
Right.
a positive tool that
Excellent.
didn't exist. But what we do know is that banks in the economic climate we're about to enter will be risk averse. We saw it after the global financial crisis, and that's why we're making sure we're working really closely with developers about what are the tools that we as a government can bring into play so we don't see what happened 8 years ago under the
banks get the banks get risk averse at the slightest sniffle. I mean, that's not even a COVID-19 reference.
Right.
If they can't make lots and lots of money as a bottom line, they get very risk averse regardless. So, okay, last but not least, what would you say is an achievable target for you in the coming year in KiwiBuild?
Look, I'm not putting numbers on it. I think one of the problems.
You've had enough trouble with it not to want to put numbers anymore.
Yeah, well, one of the problems with having those
Yes.
targets is it was perverse outcomes because the reaching targets became the be-all and end-all. So houses were being put in places that weren't suitable for KiwiBuild buyers. So what I talk about as many as we can, as quickly as we can, but they've got to be
Yes.
the right house in the right place. They've got to be
Certainly.
suited to first-home buyers. And so for me, actually making sure that we're seeing good sales from what we are
Yes.
building. And KiwiBuild is a lever. It's not just an outcome, because when I drive around Christchurch, I
Hmm.
see a whole lot of billboards where private developers are building at or below the Kiwi Build threshold. What
Hmm.
this has done is restore people's confidence in that affordable end of the market again. So we are
Certainly.
seeing activity there, which we weren't seeing previously. So when I look at the trends and I
Hmm.
see the number of first home buyers rising, I think
Hmm.
that's a really good indicator and something that we can be proud of. We're not prepared to sit back and say the market's got this, because
Right.
when it comes to that affordable end of the market, it has taken some intervention, and we're not going to give up on it.
Great. That's good to hear. And potentially we can be much better at it and put lots more Kiwis into homes, because they've loved that block of land and the front lawn and the backyard and all the rest of it. That's a Kiwi dream. It has been for a long time. So last but not least, I wanted to go out on an easy question, but I just came up with something else, which I thought I would not ask you. But given the COVID-19 crises and the massive drop in oil prices that happened across the globe, at one point, if we had lots of storage available, we could have bought it for no money. They would have shipped it to us and paid us to have it. Apparently, that's what Mr. Trump did. Why aren't we seeing that reflected at the browser?
So the negative pricing that we saw in a few days during the lockdown was
Hmm.
actually was only one of the oil markets,
Sure.
and it did bounce back. In terms of what we're seeing at the
But it's
pump,
at $30 a barrel instead of sitting around 100.
yeah, and look, that is exactly why we've got legislation about to come before the House that we do need to change some
Yes.
stuff around the wholesale markets. And
Yes.
that's why we started before we saw those prices, because we do think that New Zealanders were being overcharged. It's why we got the Commerce Commission
Well,
to
the
have
comments I'm getting, this is very interesting, is that when the price goes up, they can adjust it within a day. It's by 5 p.m. the next day. When it's going to come down, it's been 3.5 months, and they don't even have to. They haven't even acknowledged that something happened.
and look,
And
this
they've
is a
got the wage subsidy, and they've got all the help they need.
don't disagree with you, and this is precisely why we're changing some of the
Yes.
structure and the way things work. That I think that what we're seeing is in parts of the country, so the
Yes.
South Island in particular, where you don't
Yes.
have as much competition, you're paying far more. The South Island has paid far more than Auckland for their petrol,
Yes.
even with the regional levy on there. You still pay more at the pump in the South Island because we don't have as many players. So we
Well, as
need to.
global players, they're actually far bigger than our economy is even. Some of the players are actually bigger than what our economy is. So we probably don't have a lot of ability to go and, twist their arm, as it were. But it would be nice if they just played fair for a change.
Absolutely, but some of it's like that not all companies can access all the terminals at ports, that
Hmm.
they're proprietary. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at in terms of making sure that we've got the ability for other players to enter different markets. Because what we do see is prices
Yes.
do come down when someone down the road sets up with a lower pump price.
Hmm.
They adjust pretty quickly. So that works in train, and actually we're
Yes.
hoping to progress some of that before the election.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for fronting up to some of them were slightly harder ones than usual. Um, you enjoyed it. We really enjoyed the conversation and a chat, and I think we wish you all the best, especially with your family and with your loved ones. With COVID-19, sort of, kind of, it's kind of shaken us a lot, all of us a lot. So we want to wish you all the best. In terms of the lockdown, what was your favorite pastime, other than trying to keep everything afloat in the economy?
Oh, I think it was
On a personal level.
the very low commute time down my stairs to work. It was amazing. And it was nice. It was the most time I've spent at home in 9 years in the time that I've been an MP. So it was really nice. And it was just nice, I think, like everyone else,
Hmm.
the daily walks, and just the ability to do those kind of things. But I think, like everyone else, it was a relief for us to see coming out of lockdown, things being able to
Hmm.
open up and businesses being able to get run again, but also to see what we'd achieved as a country. I mean, what we've done here is actually remarkable.
Oh, it's
Um,
like a team of 5 million
it is.
that just got together. That's brilliant.
It is.
And
And we should
last
be
but not
proud.
least, your favorite lockdown recipe to be enjoyed with the family that you guys all got stuck into and made together.
Well, actually, I did learn how to make naan bread during lockdown. So I did that a couple of times, and it was quite fun and quite therapeutic, kind of
Right.
leaving the dough to prove and things like that. Yeah, no, I had a bit of fun doing that. Yeah.
And did you serve up something equally interesting with it?
Oh, absolutely. I one night made a really good fish curry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We live a bit far away. Otherwise, I would have come by and said, well, you know, we'll take it from outside the gate. You better share some.
Yeah, we would have had to keep that bubble intact.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. The Honorable Dr. Megan Woods, thank you very much for joining us on the show. And we look forward to being able to catch you possibly in the next level down, whichever the one that might be. There's nothing below level 1 as such, but hopefully we can maintain that and we'll see you in the next level down.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. So that was Dr. Megan Woods, and it seemed like, apart from managing the affairs of the country, she's very good at managing the affairs of the house, and has been instrumental in helping the rest of us and a lot of us to kind of get on top of this COVID-19. So actually, the salam and the thank you should actually go out to the 5 million New Zealanders, all of us. I'm but one of them. It's all of you that have made this possible. And that would be the best thing to segue into something that we are coming up with next. But before we do that, let's have a quick message from one of our sponsors. Let's see. Business Launchpad, Ankur Sharma. He is able to give you expert advice that you can count on. New business setups, business plans, annual and monthly accounting, cash flows, forecasting, budgets, tax advisory and compliance, IRD tax debt resolutions, property tax, zero, MYOB support, training, bookkeeping. The list is endless. In fact, I have trouble sometimes reading it as well. It just carries on and on and on. So Ankur, thank you very much for supporting us and for helping others with their accounting needs. Business Launchpad are chartered accountants into tax and advisory services. You can call them at 09 520 1515. That number again, 09 520 1515. Or you can visit them at bizlaunchpad.co.nz. I'm sure they'll look after you. Right. So, I think we can start with a little bit of local news if we are going to have a little bit of a chat with maybe to start with our editor at large. Or no, he doesn't like me saying that, but I'm going to check with my colleagues if Sandeep ji is going to be joining us. Hello, Sandeep ji, have you joined us?
Hello, Ajay ji, how are you?
I am very well. Doesn't matter how much you get used to the technology, there's always this last minute thing where you don't know कि दूसरा आदमी आया कि नहीं आया.
Well, that is the beauty of today's world, I would say, and that goes along with our interviews with the ministers and politicians as well. The element of unpredictability, I would say.
Yes. Though I am very convinced that ministers tend to be very good at the art of deflection, by and large. I'm not including anybody and not naming any names. Just as a generalization, they're very good at deflecting. So
Well,
that's the only thing that's not a surprise usually.
surely, well, and that's very true, and that makes the job of that's basically give us job, us journalists. Our job is to still find the answers, even if they are continuously deflecting.
आप डिफ्लेक्ट करते रहो, हमारी रोजी रोटी चलती रहेगी.
Very true. And
So what
on
do you
that
think?
note,
What do you think of the debacle that is Kiwi Build, and the fact that Labour, after almost 3 years of trying really hard, is in no mood to actually put any kind of numbers on it, even though they say, you know, we did better than the others. What do you feel?
well, as I said, as minister has refused to put her opinion, so we will also not do that in the favor of either one party or the other party. We would rather
Yes.
stick to facts. So fact says
Yes.
that The Labour Kiwi Bill policy used to be their flagship policy, and they went
Hmm.
into 2017 elections claiming that they will be able to build 100,000 houses in 10 years, which
Hmm.
was 10,000 houses in a year. And the number of houses that they have built so far, which is less than 400, probably
Yes.
one analyst had predicted that they would require maybe around another 400 years to basically fulfill that number. And
Yes.
that actually tells the story. And the beautiful part is our politicians and ministers, they are still not conceding that uh, the policy is a debacle. They will continue to work on achieving and putting more Kiwis into warm houses. That's all
Right.
well. And probably they are taking a course of putting the blame on the previous government. And I'm not
Hmm.
supporting any previous government, or
Sure.
I'm not accusing the current government as such. But you will have to see in perspective, and perspective says that come election time, you can promise whatever you want to promise, and then
Yeah, but can you
uh,
deliver?
fair enough, and you also refuse to be put accountable to that numbers.
Hmm.
So that is something that needs to be seen. And
Hmm.
more importantly, although I enjoyed your conversation with Minister of Housing, but we still need to see some ramped up housing construction activity after the COVID environment, after the COVID thing as well, because that's going to be an important part of our economic recovery.
I mean, if you
So
look at it, what is our shortage supposed to be? Somewhere in excess of 100,000, but maybe not quite 200,000, somewhere between those two numbers, the
uh,
housing shortage.
well, as I
So,
said, that yeah,
I mean,
mostly analysts.
it would be good to get a percentage of it every year rather than drip feeds of, 200 houses or 150 houses a year.
Well, again, as I said, that no intelligent person has tried to put numbers. So this is a
Mm.
whopping problem, and governments, they have failed. And then we have got two stripes of government: one national, which is center right, then one Labour, which is center left. They both have
Yes.
their own ideologies. They one
Mm.
believe in free market, and another believe in government intervention.
Yes.
Both are not absolutely correct. And that's why probably here in New Zealand we have got a good center, and both
Hmm.
governments, they have to come to center and start moving. The only thing is a simple axiom that says that what gets focused gets achieved. So
Hmm.
probably that is where we need to see that which government is putting their focus on which area. and
Yes.
and to give credit to Megan Woods, or Minister Megan Woods, we would say that surely, they are doing well in terms of social housing.
Hmm.
Recently, they are actually still on track on achieving the public housing of around 18,000 public houses and
Right.
transitional houses, reaching around in 2024. So they are still
Hmm.
on target. They are doing quite well in that space. But yes, Kiwi Bill, affordable housing, and middle income Kiwis, I think in that space, probably they
Yes.
are struggling, and struggling big time.
Yeah, and it's probably a global trend. Other than certain markets, we won't get into exactly which ones because it's a big wide world. But I think the trend has been city living is getting more and more expensive, including our country where there's so much of a shortage. And what about the refrain on? Yeah, we'll try and hold the oil companies responsible for behaving reasonably and not ripping us off all the time. Do you think we are probably just not big enough to be able to make them, behave responsibly?
Well, again, that's a tricky question to ask. And I would say that we have seen last year, probably Prime Minister Ardern herself has criticized uh, petrol
Yeah,
companies for hiking the petrol prices. And
yeah.
that was kind of a tricky situation where we have seen that government has this uncanny ability of criticizing the big private players. So uh, again, like those petrol companies, they also play an important part. So uh, there is no benefit by
Yes,
criticizing the private sector. It really sends a wrong message. Probably
right.
both is required. Government's active intervention is required, but private
Hmm.
sector also needs to have that regulated environment where they can operate freely. So
Sure.
we need to find a solution that is more towards center rather than towards any extreme, either left or right.
So I won't disagree with you. I just think in terms of the consumer. The consumer seems to take a hit either way. And that's really, that's the constituency we talk to, and that's us on a personal level as well. So, but I love your balanced approach, and possibly in an ideal world, there will be that balance that will be struck where the regulation is just enough and the corporates grow a conscience. And we'll look forward to that. And I don't say that lightly. I think things are changing around the world. Anything could happen. Some good things could come out in the next few years. And last but not least, Sandeep ji, what should we look forward to in next week's Indian Weekender?
Well, I cannot say like our this week
News is still being made.
Yes,
News is still being made.
guys. So if you meant that what we have already covered, we have covered whatever is affecting our communities, our Kiwi Indian
Yes.
community. We
Yes.
are working hard to basically get some kind of support and bring the voices of our migrant community who are basically suffering both onshore and offshore as well.
Sure.
So we'll continue to work along with them, along with
Yes.
what's happening in our community and broader areas.
Sure. Next time I'll quiz you on any particular projects that you're actually working on, and we can see where it's headed, because I know some stories can take weeks to develop. Some of the ones where you have to talk to a whole number of people before you can actually put the story together. So as usual, really nice talking to you, and wishing you all the best for the Sunday, what's left of it.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaskar, kia ora, salam, namaste, sat sri akal, sab kuch. Okay, so folks, I think we've had a longish interview and a longish catch up on that. So we may not have time to cover all of the things we wanted to, but I'll check with my colleagues how we are doing with time. And it seems we are okay at the moment. So let's start with some news out of New Zealand, which is, if you even watched television for half an hour last night, didn't actually watch the full game, you would be aware that कल रात चीफ्स वर्सेस हाईलैंडर्स की गेम हुई थी और उसका हीरो निकला ब्रिन गैटलैंड. And the Highlanders beat the Chiefs with the very narrowest of margins of 28-27. पर पहली चीज ये नहीं कि बहुत बढ़िया रिजल्ट था या बढ़िया रिजल्ट नहीं था, वो ये थी कि न्यूजीलैंड ने फिर से एक बार पहल की. और इस बार क्या पहल थी? पहली स्टेडियम कर डाली किसी भी गेम में, definitely in rugby, but any game since the lockdown started, the rolling lockdown started with this COVID-19 pandemic. So I think thanks to the efforts of the 5 million New Zealanders, Kiwis, you have done well. So last night there was a crowd of more than 20,000 that got together in the Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin. जैसा कहा मैंने आपसे कि रिजल्ट इतना सिग्निफिकेंट नहीं था, लेकिन ये मैच को खेल पाना भी, सिर्फ just to have played it and have the audience there, that was very significant. What that match represented was that the whole country was emerging from the throes of the global pandemic. There was zero active COVID-19 cases. And people could stand next to each other, enjoy that glass of beer, and, the game could play a host to a house full, if almost, of sports staff fans. And we've already looked forward to it, to be able to see what the next game is going to be. Now, there was one little interesting aside in that one. थोड़ा सा irony हुई. Highlanders के जो Bryn Gatland थे, he held his nerve to hit a winning drop goal. और अपने पिता की टीम, जो opposite team थी, वो Warren Gatling कोच करते हैं, उनकी टीम को Dunedin में हरा डाला. That was a very interesting scenario. और इससे भी बड़ी news, getting bigger than the Kiwi component, इसी से जुड़ी हुई इंडिया की न्यूज़ है. इंडिया से कुछ इंक्वायरीज आई हैं to the sports bodies and to the sports teams कि भैया आप ये स्टेडियम स्पोर्ट्स जो कर रहे हैं, इसको कर पाने का राज क्या है. और शायद आईपीएल की तो सभी टीमों से कम एक ना एक रिप्रेजेंटेटिव को तो शायद आना ही पड़ेगा, मुझे लगता है वो शायद आना भी चाहेंगे. एक्चुअली बहुत सारे रेप्स भी आ सकते हैं, बिकॉज इट्स सच अ बिग थिंग इन इंडिया, द होल क्रिकेट थिंग. क्योंकि स्पोर्ट्स जंकेट आएगा तो उसमें तो पूरी की पूरी टीम आ सकती है, और क्योंकि क्रिकेट इतना बड़ा है भारत में, तो वो तो किसी भी खेल से कम नहीं है. राइट? सो I was just thinking, who could start with the first sport junket if the borders are, open and people can come and go as they please? or even if they can be a special case, I would say send Virushka. विराट को भेजिए थोड़ा सा क्रिकेट के लिए और गेम के लिए, और अनुष्का को भेज दीजिए, थोड़ी एंटरटेनमेंट फिल्म भी हो जाएगी और थोड़ी क्रिकेट वाली भी हो जाएगी. क्या कहते हैं? दोनों हो जाएगा. एंड इन अदर न्यूज, भारत में ही रहते हैं आगे बढ़ते के लिए, कि वहां पर थोड़ा सीरियस मामले में अगर बात करी जाए तो कहा जा रहा है कि इंडिया में कई हिस्सों में शुरू हो चुका है कोरोना का कम्युनिटी ट्रांसमिशन. क्या सच्चाई है? ये सरकार स्वीकार कर सकती है अभी कि नहीं कर सकती है, करना चाहती है कि नहीं, ये नहीं पता हमें. देश में कोरोना अब तक तेजी से एक समझ लीजिए पैर पसार रहा है. रोज 10,000 से अधिक नए मामले. द कोरोना केसेस इन इंडिया आर टोटलिंग मोर देन 10,000 a day. लेकिन सरकार ये मानने को तैयार नहीं है कि भारत में इसका कम्युनिटी ट्रांसमिशन का एक चरण जो है वो शुरू हो चुका है. अगर आप देखा जाए तो विशेषज्ञ जो हैं इंडियन काउंसिल ऑफ मेडिकल रिसर्च ICMR से, वो लोग इसके बारे में बहुत खुले होकर बात कर रहे हैं और कह रहे हैं कि उनके सीरो सर्वे में देश की मौजूदा स्थिति ये रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं होती है कि जो कम्युनिटी संक्रमण, जो कम्युनिटी ट्रांसमिशन है वो हो रहा है, इसके बारे में बात ही नहीं हो रही है. और उनका ये भी कहना है कि देश के कई हिस्सों में कोरोना की कम्युनिटी ट्रांसमिशन हो चुकी है, यानी कि हो रही है. पर इसका आगे बढ़ के अगर एक अंदाज़ा लिया जाए और ओपनली इसके बारे में बात करी जाए तो गवर्नमेंट लोगों को सतर्क कर सकती है, उनको अपने बचाव के लिए ज़्यादा मदद कर सकती है. बी ओपन, बी ट्रांसपेरेंट, दे कैन हेल्प द पीपल बेटर. And we are hoping that there'll be some good news coming out of that quarter very soon. अच्छा, जाते जाते आपसे एक हल्की फुल्की बात कर जाते हैं. हल्की भी है लेकिन बहुत दिल को अच्छी लगने वाली भी है. नाम है नाहरुख खान. सुना तो होगा आपने. अब मुझे वो शाहरुख खान का डायलॉग नहीं आता यार, नहीं तो मैं वो उसी तरह से बोलता. नाम तो सुना होगा. एक्चुअली शायद जितने ख्याति प्राप्त शाहरुख खान है, शायद उतना नाहरुख खान नहीं है, लेकिन नाहरुख खान कमाल के आदमी है. यूट्यूब से देखकर गजब की चीजें बना लेते हैं ये. कुछ दिनों पहले उन्होंने सैनिटाइजिंग के लिए ऑटोमेटेड मशीन बनाई थी. वेरी वेल डन नाहरू जी. काफी तारीफ भी हुई थी उनकी. अब एक बार फिर सुर्खियों में है वो. किस लिए? उन्होंने एक सेंसर वाली घंटी बना दी है, या घंटा कह लीजिए, जो मंदिरों में बजता है. मतलब ऐसी घंटी जिसे आप बिना हाथ लगाए बजा सकते हैं. You just have to put your hand forward. और हाँ, ये घंटी पशुपतिनाथ मंदिर में भी लगाई गई है, ऑलरेडी चालू हो गई है. जाहिर है अनलॉक 1 लेवल पे आते आते इसके साथ जहाँ पे धार्मिक स्थल, माल और कार्गो और रेस्टोरेंट आदि खुल रहे हैं और मॉल्स वगैरह भी खुल रहे हैं, लेकिन कोरोना संक्रमण को रोकने के लिए मंदिर की घंटियों को ढककर उस पर कवर लगा दिए गए थे, कपड़ा बांध दिया गया था, ताकि उन्हें लोग हाथ ना लगाएं. रस्सी पे भी अगर आप हाथ लगाएंगे तो उससे भी स्प्रेड हो सकता है. ऐसे में नाहरू खान का ये जो इन्वेंशन है लोगों को बहुत पसंद आया और उसका उन्होंने दिल जीत लिया एक तरह से. ही सेड समथिंग वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. ही सेड हम आजान सुनते हैं तो मैंने सोचा कि मंदिरों में जो घंटियां हैं उनकी आवाज आए तो वो भी अच्छा लगेगा. सो हाउ डज इट वर्क? वेरी सिंपल. इट्स अ प्रॉक्सिमिटी सेंसर. आप हाथ अपना रखिए, द सेंसर मेक्स द बेल मूव. सो वेरी वेल डन. कंग्रेचुलेशंस मिस्टर नाहरू खान. जाते जाते आपके लिए हमारे एक व्हाट्सएप मोमेंट में दिस इज अ लिटिल बिट चीकी. किसी ने भेजा है सामने से, कहते देश में सरकारी अस्पताल का मतलब है कि जान से हाथ धो सकते हैं और प्राइवेट अस्पताल का मतलब है जायदाद से हाथ धो सकते हैं. इसलिए हर घंटे हाथ धोते रहें ताकि दोनों से आपको हाथ धोना ना पड़े. आप सब अपना ख्याल रखें, जहां भी हैं सेफ रहें, स्वस्थ रहें. आई एम योर होस्ट अजय वशिष्ठ ऑन वीकेंड और ऑन संडे. आई विल सी यू नेक्स्ट संडे. अभी भी इन द सेफेस्ट कंट्री दुनिया भर में. फ्रॉम न्यूजीलैंड इट्स किया ओरा, सलाम, नमस्ते, सत श्री अकाल. टिल नेक्स्ट टाइम. सी यू folks.